my buddy and senior editor of Post Millennial, Andy No. Andy, how are you, my man?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me on to speak about this.
Andy, how did I do there? Because we are friends throughout this, and there's a whole bunch of us. We all become friends, and then people know us, and they think things about us, and some of it's public, some of it isn't. It's kind of difficult to talk about some of that stuff, but you're one of the guys also that just we all kind of rose up together, and we now exist in this weird space.
Lots of commentators like to react to many things, but few will be able to provide a personal insight, particularly as you have, because as you shared in that opening, you were one of the first big platforms to help mainstream Candace Owens, even before she went by Candace Owens. I remember those days back in 2016. Her public career beyond her initial YouTube persona had a lot to do with you introducing her in those days as a Black conservative and a Trump supporter to a much larger audience. Fast forward 7 years, this firing that was, this business relationship that ended with Daily Wire. I misspoke there. We don't know the circumstances of whether it was a firing or a mutual agreement. It is surprising, but perhaps not, in the sense that if you take a step back, Candace has been with several other organizations before, and they don't really last all too long. Before, she was at TP USA for a time, and then she was at PragerU, and then in 2021, she joined Daily Wire. I wanted to provide a little bit of context around what may have led up to this moment.
Sure, Andy. Can I just want to throw in one thing real quick because you mentioned Turning Point, and I actually completely forgot until just now. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I actually introduced her to Charlie Kirk, and I was standing about 10 feet away from them when she got that first job at Turning Point. We were at the Breakers at a Horowitz Freedom Center event, and David Horowitz, by the way, who also helped her become the Candace Owens we know. We did an event with her that weekend. He has publicly denounced her, let's say, in light of some recent views. But yeah, I did connect her with Turning Point. It is what it is. Anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
So it seems like Daily Wire had hired Candace Owens to do what she does, which is to give her opinions. She's been controversial for a long time, controversial depending, I suppose, on who you ask. I think what it looked from the outside that the business relationship appeared to probably have been started to strain around the time when Kanye West in late 2022 had made a number of inflammatory and anti-Semitic statements in his personal life, on Twitter at that time, in interviews that he gave. Candace Owens publicly stood by him. But this relationship strain with her colleagues really spilled out into the public after the 7th of October terror attacks by Hamas in Israel, in which Ms. Owens took a view that many viewed as too sympathetic to Gaza, too harshly and unfairly critical of Israel. And as you highlighted in your opening segment, there were some very ugly back and forth that she had with Ben Shapiro, who is one of the co-founders and presenters on Daily Wire. Now, leading up to her separation from Daily Wire this morning, last week, there was another spat that she had with another rabbi. And according to Mediaite, Ms. Owens had liked a post from another user who mentioned that the rabbi was, and this is the quote, drunk on Christian blood. Now, of course, that goes back to a very old anti-Semitic trope about blood libels in Jewish people. And Ms. Owens had also, in her public spats with this rabbi who had accused her of anti-Semitism, she did bring up his religion. So I wonder if that was really the breaking point. This is immediately really in the days preceding this morning's announcement.
So as someone that has been treated quite poorly by the media yourself, and you've gone independent, you're on Locals also, which I'm thrilled about, and now you're doing your thing with Post Millennial. Can you talk a little bit about the platform publisher thing that I mentioned? Because I think it's an important distinction that people don't really understand. Candace and Daily Wire has every right to fire her. They will deal with the repercussions of that. But she's not being deplatformed as if she was on Twitter and then somehow Twitter was not allowing her. I think it's an important distinction to make.
I think some people were surprised that Daily Wire had maintained a business relationship with her for as long as it did, given that there have been many months of pretty controversial statements. But speaking to being somebody who is also an independent journalist, when you have an institutional relationship, either with another business, you are part of their brand. So even if they hire you as a commenter, which is to give your opinions, you have to do it in a professional way. And I'm just speaking generally now. I'm not speaking specifically about Ms. Owens, but obviously, me being a senior editor at the Post Millennial, what I say is obviously words that I have to own, but also if I am unprofessional or inaccurate or somehow just completely off base, that reflects on the news publication that I'm with. So, we've seen a lot of content creators who have institutional connections at some point or another, just perhaps maybe are not able to reconcile that their speech they also have to think about their business relationships with others and how it may be interpreted and affect those who work with them.
Right. Everyone should understand, all of this is a series of trade-offs. If you are someone that exists in our space and you take a deal with the network, most likely because they're going to own your content, they're going to overpay you. So you're going to take a bigger check because they're going to have more control, right? Like anyone at Fox News, they don't own what they're doing. Fox News is giving them a big check to do that. And that's a calculation. And that's not a judgment call by me. That's a calculation. You go independent. Well, now your upside is huge, but your risk is also huge because it could all fall apart. You may think you're going to be huge. And then the next you launch an independent, you launch Locals or whatever your subscription network might be, and it just may fall apart. Andy, what do you think about all of this sort of politically? You and I think, are people that certainly started, let's say, on the left for a long time. We're now definitely embraced a little bit more by the right. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think either one of us would call ourselves traditional conservatives. But because we tend to be more in right-wing circles now, there is some strange, I think that the fight between Ben and Candace also is illuminating a broader fight on the right. What do you think about that, sort of politically speaking?
I think that the political left is obviously very happy whenever they can see the right in the United States be fractured or have issues of infighting. But at the end of the day, these are issues that have to be resolved. How do you reconcile very disparate views that exist on the right about the state of Israel? Obviously, there are views of Israel that go from criticisms all the way to hatred of the state of Israel, all the way to anti-Semitism that exists on the far right. That's also an additional context to this story that I didn't mention earlier. That a lot of the online cheerleading of Ms. Owens in recent weeks and months have come from the online so-called Groyper movement, which is extremely anti-Semitic. And hit pieces have been written about Ms. Owens for this. I don't fault her, by the way, for what other people say and write about her. But her critics have also pointed out that she's failed to sufficiently distance herself from these people who have come now to cheer her on. And you can see these in the comments in the back and forths that have happened. So that's also part of the context here, that there are different factions at play who are who are reveling in this chaos, I would say.
Right. It's interesting because that was what I was trying to bring up yesterday on the Patrick Bet David podcast. Everyone's got their own calculations, their own audience to go to. She may just view this new online, right? I mean, trust me, when I've had little interactions with her that I do as respectfully as possible, like it's not even that she's going after me, it's the endless amount of crazy hate. It is what it is. I don't bitch and moan about it. It's the internet. People say weird things. Let me just do a couple other predictions. I know everybody loves being in the prediction game. Where do you think this leaves the Daily Wire at the moment? Because they've built something truly extraordinary that nobody thought they could build, left LA to do it, highly profitable and everything else. Do you think they come out of this thing stronger or weaker?
I think for a time their audience will be splintered, but they'll recover. And I predict the same thing about Miss Owens as well. The thing is, in this space, people have short memories. This might seem very catastrophic now, but months down the line, people forget. We can think of, how many people who have had various scandals, some of them very big, who have just recovered, and people just forget that they had this scandal the year before or a couple of years before. And Miss Owens is obviously somebody who's very brilliant. She's very charismatic. She's already shown that she's been able to move up and up and up in her career. And so I predict that both parties will be fine, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. You think she's going to stay independent? Because there's just no doubt that there are major checks being drawn up right now, whether it's Tucker, I just have no doubt about that, or maybe PBD or elsewhere.
I think given how controversial the days leading up to her separation has been with Daily Wire, that any larger conservative media that would have the resources to have Ms. Owens as a contributor or a presenter in some way, they're probably going to be a bit reluctant. And I'm not giving any personal insight. I'm just speaking generally of figures who are controversial. But I think maybe an independent platform may be what Ms. Owens wants, in that she has very explosive views on a number of issues. And if any type of institutional affiliation is going to in some ways put a muzzle on her, and that's not something she's willing to accept, clearly. So it seems like the independent way is, I predict, is probably what she's going to be most happy with.
Well, Andy, we were kids when we started this thing, and here we are now. I appreciate your insight as always. And everyone go to andyknow.locals.com because he is an independent content creator, and you can see all of his controversial stuff. It was good seeing you, my friend. I'm going to finish up for a couple minutes without you.
Thank you.